Hello, everyone. Welcome to this presentation on performing human rights. My name is Roberto Prestigiacomo. I am a professor of theater at Trinity University and also a theater director. So talking about performing human rights, it's really a collaboration between political science and performance. This interdisciplinary approach brings together international law and the performance of theater, music, art, dance, video as they respond to human rights violations. The desire of creating a synergy between these two fields is the outcome of my collaboration with Dr. Rosa Aloisi, a colleague that teaches international law and human rights at Trinity University. Two were the initial steps of this collaboration. The first one was the creation of a new class at Trinity University called Performing Human Rights. This class offered the political science and the theater and performance students the opportunity to learn from each other in order to go into their respective professions with a wider set of instruments to tackle the challenges ahead. The political science students started to see performance as a tool they can use and develop as they apply, defend, or change laws, while the artists realized the importance of knowing the law as they create their performances in order to make their work more impactful. All of them came out with a better understanding of their role in society and how their contribution can improve the quality of life of others and themselves. The second step of our collaboration was to develop case studies and performances around human rights violations by going on the field and collecting interviews and material we can then use to shape performances within and with the members of the local communities. Our first project was in Sicily and started in the summer of 2019. We worked with the African migrants that had found refuge in Catania at the Comunità di Sant'Egidio. Despite the constant attention devoted to human rights by scholars, artists, and policymakers, most of the issues about human rights remain controversial, and some of the most serious problems are unresolved. Human rights violations persist across the globe as a constant reminder that everything about this system is controversial, from the definition of core human rights protections to the best and effective tools to shine the spotlight on repressive regimes. With this in mind, we defined and identified two main objectives that focused our activities in the classroom and on the field. The first objective is to share with and explain to the participants the core international human rights instruments, laws, and the United Nations legal framework. And the second goal is to assess how different strategies of performance affect the protection and promotion of international human rights system. Some specific questions guided and still guide our work. What is the connection between performance and human rights? How do different types of performance inform, strengthen, and empower the knowledge and fight against human rights violations? How does the understanding of human rights shape the way theater, dance, music, video represent them? Through the application of theatrical techniques, we create performances to understand the impact theater and performance has on human rights violations, on the reconciliation of conflicts, and on the restitution of human dignity to victims of repression. This approach is the extension into performance and the culmination of 20 years of practice and research on the field of theater for social change, theater of the oppressed, community-based theater. Performing human rights uses a mix of creative approaches to bring about constructive and wanted changes into specific communities. We have learned much from practitioners and artists from different disciplines and are in depth with many of them, especially with Augusto Boal. Image theater, invisible theater, and form theater are approaches that we inherited from Boal, tools that we applied and developed, bringing us to an expansion into performance with the incorporation of dance, music, video, and theater. This expansion was a big breakthrough. It allowed us the flexibility to adapt to the main mode of performance of the community we are visiting. Some communities use music or dance or theater as their main mode of creative expression. Theater, though, is always the starting point, with its emphasis on verbal storytelling. Here, Boal has laid the foundation for a direct approach that is universal, since it is based on a community coming together, telling stories, and through the stories, using the theater tools to practice for life. There are many challenges that we encounter in this work. On one side, a law that often does not have the enforceable qualities in individual regions and nations. And second, the difficulty of performance to reach a wider audience, not only the abused, but the abusers as well, not only the community where the violation happens, but also the wider region where the same violation may occur. Today, I can only introduce the work and experimentation conducted in these past 18 months to make the arts an impactful vehicle for social change. COVID-19 has impacted every aspect of life, and we as artists need to understand, adapt, and read the spirit of the time, to use a terminology dear to Carl Jung, but mostly act on these changing realities by reading the current narrative and then change that narrative that does not work for our community. The narrative of going back to the way it was before is a wrong narrative. As an artist, I need to look at reality objectively and accept that COVID is here to stay. And then work toward creating a narrative for the present that sets in motion the opportunities for the future. With the current crisis, we can no longer look at our work the same way. With performing human rights, we needed to reinvent the practice. And that is what we did. We went into a research and experimentation mode by interviewing other artists, journalists, teachers, students, philosophers on their experience of life in quarantine. Given also our personal experiences and stories, we noticed that most of them talked of a journey inward. Since people could not go outside, they went inside themselves. And this journey inward of self-reflection, often illuminated by a more symbolic language, became a place where they could have a personal experience of reality, often translated as a personal mythology, an intimate place of safety and possibilities. They all experience symbolic journeys. Often the imagery shared had striking similarities. This journey inward was experienced through dreams, meditations, fantasies, and the creative activities that many incorporated into their daily routines. That was also my personal experience. Since I could not go out, I went inside myself, and there I found a rich world manifested in symbols. There I found everybody. I could relate to each one of the people I interviewed, and I bet you know what I'm talking about. I started to analyze these experiences through the lenses of mythology, specifically the monomyth as expressed by Joseph Campbell in his Heroes of a Thousand Faces, and the work of Carl Jung on the archetypes of the collective unconscious and his personal journey recorded on his Red Book. More than ever, the monomyth of Joseph Campbell, with its call to the adventure, the supernatural aid, the crossing of the threshold, the road of trials, and finally the return, just to mention some steps of this journey of the monomyth, made me realize that we were all in the belly of the whale. An archetypal place, space, a new universe, facing our fears and contemplating possibilities. Jung, with these archetypes of the collective unconscious, where all these adventures of heroes have been collected themselves and shared symbolically over millennia, building a mythological DNA, were the core out of which unity could be restored. Out of this archetype of the collective unconscious, through the journey of the hero, we move past the outward separation of daily life, given by status, power, politics, money, finding within ourselves a force that binds us together. This binding force is also present at times in the daily acts of life. Here is an example. Washington, D.C., January 6, 2021. A group of protesters overwhelmed the policeman. They started to beat him up, and one of them took the policeman's gun away. They all started chanting, "Kill him," with his own gun. At that point, the policeman screamed, "I have a daughter, I have a daughter." That was when the protesters pulled back, stopped beating him, and let him go. This must be indicative of a presence within ourselves of a common experience that is archetypal. In this case, the father, the daughter, the mother, the son, an experience that binds us together. It was obvious that performing human rights needed to evolve and embrace this changing reality. We could no longer examine and work on the direct narrative of the events as they unfolded. We needed to explore and create a process that allowed the community to find its essential unity through the exploration of their inward and symbolic world. This is what we are working on. As of now, the process has evolved. We start with the collecting and recording of the direct narrative of the events, and then we move into an experience of the symbolic world of each participant. While the outward exploration is based on the collection of narrative through interviews with the community, and then its exploration through image theater, invisible theater, and forum theater, the experience of the inward first acknowledges the realistic direct narrative and then moves into the fantastic of the symbolic world. We start with automatic writing exercises. Then we use the automatic writing as a sound to initiate some free movement exploration of the participants. After some work with the free movement, where the participant explores her space, and out of this free movement, we then lead the participant to some initial contact improvisation activities so that they enter in contact with somebody else within a specific space. This work is designed to lead the participants to an experience of the symbolic. And after the improvisation, the contact improvisation activities, we move into the asemic writing workshop, the active imagination, meditation, and writing, and to end with the 5 images workshop. All this work finds its culmination with the ensemble creating and writing together a long poem. Once this poem is written, then it is performed using text, dance, movement, visuals, sound, and music. And the language of this long poem is often mostly symbolic. We still have some work to do, but in conclusion, performing human rights emerges from the COVID crisis with a new frontier of expression where we can continue to find ways to use performance to contribute to a better quality of life by finding the correct narrative for our times. I thank you all, and I will share with you some examples of the work that we have done in Sicily and also via video. And it is here. And thank you very much. And I'll say goodbye.